welcome to the Wild Review, and welcome to day 20 of 25 Wild Christmas Review Days. Today we have a very interesting story we're going to look over. This is another one of those films I saw for the very first time, and I'll be honest with you, I expected a little more from it. This is Fred Claus. Released in 2007, Fred Claus focuses on Fred Claus, played by Vince Vaughn. Vince Vaughn. V-A-U-G-H-N. You know what, I think I should just stop trying. Fred is the older brother of Santa, who also is named Nick in this film, but growing up, Fred never got the appreciation and was always looked down on by his parents, seeing that his parents favored Nick more than him because they found Nick to be a saint. In fact, the day that Nick is officially announced a saint, him and his family are frozen in time to remain the same age that they are at that point, so this way Nick can continue on being a saint forever and never die. Well, over the course of the years, Fred has gotten himself into some situations. He's a fast-talking, butt-centered guy who lives in Chicago, who's looking to get $50,000 to open up his own off-track betting shop. However, one attempt of scamming people out of their money by pretending he's a Santa on the corner of a street raising money for the Salvation Army, he ends up getting chased by a bunch of men who are actually working for the Salvation Army and eventually gets brought into jail. Determined to get out so this way he can get the money and open up his shop, he calls the only person that comes to mind, his brother Nick, all the way up in the North Pole to see if he would be willing enough to bail him out of prison. Not only that, but he also sees if Nick is willing to give him the money he needs. Nick agrees to bail him out of prison, however, in order for him to get the $50,000, he's gonna have to work for it. So once bailed out of jail, Fred is sent to the North Pole to help his brother work on the naughty and nice list. This way things can move smoothly this Christmas. However, things at the North Pole start turning upside down as a man named Clyde Northcutt, who's an efficiency expert, arrives to evaluate the North Pole and informs Nick that if he sees anything that's a bit fishy or even a bit off with the way they work things and he gets 3 strikes, the workshop will be closed and Santa will be fired. Where the hell do I start with this film? Like, I expected something else. I expected the plot to be a little differently. While I recall seeing the trailers for this movie, I remember it being promoted as a family holiday film, which is what it felt like, but I felt like it was trying to be 2 different types of films other than just a family film. I felt it was supposed to be a heartwarming family Christmas film, but also was trying to be a goofy, silly comedy film. Now, of course, that's what this is. This is a family comedy film, which is perfectly fine. You can have that type of film, but the way certain scenes go, some things kind of seem out of place. One minute you have a serious scene going on, the next minute you have a comedy scene going on. And while that can be done very well, I felt like the pacing of all the jokes and how much time we get serious time and then how much time we get joking time and slapstick time, and it kind of felt a little uneven. You know what else kind of felt a little out of place and off? The Elves. What the hell is wrong with the Elves? I didn't catch it the first time when one of the elves, Willie, who's the head elf at the North Pole, I didn't catch it that first time because he actually kind of seemed a little normal the first time that we see him. But you eventually get to see the problem with him as the film goes on regarding to the way he looks. But it didn't catch my eye officially that something was a little off with all these elves until we saw Ludacris's character. Yes, Ludacris is in this film. He plays an elf DJ called Donny. And you can tell something's off within the second you see him. I couldn't process whether he was a CGI character or if he was a real person, but something was definitely off. And then I realized his face is on a small body. And that wasn't just the thing with him. That's with all the elves. If you look really closely, especially with Willie, when there's a specific scene where Fred is teaching him how to dance, and you can clearly tell that his head is CGI'd on this small body. What was the problem with getting small people? Or do what they did in Elf, where they had normal people playing the elves, but just shrunk them down to make them look like elves. Wait, you couldn't do that? I'll be honest, that was the one thing that I kept in my mind while watching that film, because it stands out perfectly. I guess since we're on the topic of things that just don't make sense at all, let's talk about the character Clyde Northcutt. Who the hell was he? We eventually learned who this character was at the end, obviously. Growing up, he's kind of hated Christmas. He's not a big fan of Santa. This can be seen, what he's doing in this film can be seen as a revenge plan against Santa, because he didn't get a Superman cape when he was little because he was naughty. And then he gets the cape at the end of the film because Santa's like, what you're doing here is wrong, because he's the main antagonist of the film. He's trying to ruin Christmas and shut down Santa and fire him and fire all the elves. Wants to shut down the North Pole, shut down Christmas. But he gets a Superman cape. All of a sudden now he's happy. He's a happy guy. He's gonna save Christmas now and realize, okay, I was a jerk. Thanks for giving me my cape. And at the near end of the film, we get a Where Are They Now segment because we needed one of those, and we see that he is now an expediting person who works at the North Pole. Character development. I think that was a waste of a character. I think as an antagonist, the character was played very well. However, I think his motivation to make sure Santa gets fired and the North Pole gets shut down, I don't go for that at all, because you can't do that. You can't just shut down the North Pole. You can't shut down Santa. You can't fire Santa. I think that's just a bunch of crap. Like, he's not working for anybody. Santa is he's just this guy who works once a year giving toys to kids. What? You're gonna tell the kids that they're not getting toys because Santa was fired? So with all that out of the way, I guess I could talk about the stuff I did like about this film, because I did think it was pretty cute. It's not great, but there were some things I definitely liked about it. One of those things is the whole dynamic of what's going on in the film. It's very clear what's going on between the characters and even a little of the plot. It's just a simple brother is jealous of brother story. Before Nick came into the world, Fred was the one kid that his parents focused on. And then when Nick came into the world, obviously they found him to be a bit more lovable. His mom considered him a saint, and constantly throughout the film she would say, why can't you be more like your brother? Which obviously, when a sibling hears that, it does not feel good. I can kind of imagine how that would feel, being told, I wish you were more like him. Because then that just gives that person the insecurity that he is not good enough. And seeing that this was kind of traumatizing for Fred growing up, especially since they're all kind of like frozen in time now, because that's another big aspect of the film, that they can never age, they're never going to die. They've been around for a really long time. The fact that Fred is never going to have this let down, it's understandable to why he acts the way he does. Things that happen to you in the past can definitely affect the way that you grow up. It can affect the person that you're going to become in the future. I also like the whole idea centering around naughty kids, which was used a lot in this film, but not heavily. This is mostly because, it's obviously focusing on Fred. Fred is a naughty kid ever since Nick came into the world, and he slowly started getting more appreciation towards his parents. Obviously, Fred was feeling jealous, so Fred started becoming a bad person. He was scamming people. He could never keep promises. And I like his whole message regarding naughty kids. And the fact that he thinks that, everyone should at least get just one thing. Because I get his whole thing with, naughty kids. They're not bad people. There's a reason why they're acting like this. I like the dynamic that he had with the kids slam. I think that was pretty cute. I'm very surprised that, because again, they do a Where Are They Now segment. I'm very surprised that Slam was not adopted by Fred or Wanda, who's Fred's love interest in the film. Slam is a kid that has no parents, and that's really all the description we get of the character in the film. So overall, I thought the film was nice, but it's got some things it should have worked on, and also it just doesn't, some parts just no. I kind of feel like this film should have done something a little different. While the plot is fine, I don't really have that big of a problem with the plot because it's okay, but I think what would have made this film better is maybe if the plot was altered just a little. I think for this film what would have been cool if maybe what we got at the ending where Santa wasn't able to deliver the gifts, Fred takes over, because supposedly there's a rule saying that only a Claus can deliver the gifts. Rules, am I right? So we get a whole sequence of Fred being the one that delivers the gifts. I think it would have been really interesting to see maybe the film focus mostly on that. What if the film had the same beginning, that Santa was the one that got most attention in the family, Fred is just this, and then something happens to Santa in the film, Fred has to go there now, and is told, he has to do this for his brother because, only a Claus can deliver the gifts, and the parents can't do it because they're not fit for it. So it can only be Fred. And then Fred delivers all the gifts, and then everyone's very impressed that he did it. And then over time, Fred starts taking charge, and we could slowly see Fred slowly trying to take the Santa jobs. This way he gets the appreciation that his brother gets. I think that would have been a really cool plot, because you would keep the same idea that you're keeping in this film. But also, I kind of thought that's what the film was going to be originally. But hey, it wasn't, and I was wrong. I think that would have definitely probably worked, especially if you got rid of that Clyde Northcutt character in that version of it. I think maybe you would have a pretty good film on your hand. It's fine the way it is. I mean, again, it's okay. It's not one of my favorites. It was just a film that I saw. I don't hate it. I don't think it was stupid. I don't think any of it was stupid. I think the people that acted in it did really good. There really wasn't any sort of acting issue that I had. Everyone did fine. And the last thing I should probably bring up is the setting, because that seems to be a common thing I bring up in these type of films, especially when it's a Christmas film and you focus on the North Pole. I like judging how the North Pole looks, and I really like the whole setup of how the North Pole looks. It looks very similar to the North Pole in the Santa Claus, which is, I guess, why I like it. I guess because that's just like the common image that I have about the North Pole, seeing that one's my favorite. Yeah, with that all said, there's nothing else that's really popping into my mind about this film. Overall, it was alright. Again, not one of my favorites, but it didn't suck, so I'm happy about that. So good job, Fred Claus. You didn't bore me. That's what I think about Fred Claus. That's my opinion on it. That's what I thought about it. Now I want to hear what all of you think about it. Have you ever seen Fred Claus? If you've seen it, what do you think about it? If you haven't seen it, does it sound like something you may want to see? Do you agree or disagree with anything that I said in this video? Let me know all your thoughts in the comments below. That's it for day 20 of 25 Wild Christmas Review Days. We got 5 more days left of this whole entire thing. Come back tomorrow as we touch upon a film that may or may not have scarred some kids growing up. Thanks for watching The Wild Review on The Wild Reviewer, and you just saw me review a thing. I just remembered something. There were a lot of Thomas the Tank Engines in this film. Specifically 3. Thomas the Tank Engine shows up 3 times in this film. I won't tell you at what parts, but look up the film. You can definitely find him.